life, and it's had me thinking a lot about the value of community, and also as a consequence, thinking about what is it that we share? All of us here in this call, right? We share this unificationist, I guess, heritage, right? That's what we all share, and we're part of the the church, right? As it's often put, the unificationist community. So I just wanted to kind of look into this. What is the church, and how do we understand the community? And then what kind of a community do we want to build? Because that's the position that all of us find ourselves in. We are not necessarily the future of this community, this movement, but we're actually the present. We're actually in the position to shape the community right now as well. So I think it's an important thing to discuss. Yeah, but I really want to facilitate discussion more than give a talk here. So that's what I'm trying to do. Okay, so I wanted to start by looking at this term, the church. So yeah, I guess growing up in as a BC, I've heard this term. I don't want to say thrown around a lot, but I've heard this is kind of how we refer to unificationism, right? This thing that we do, this thing we all share. But I wanted to look at where does this term the church actually come from? Because really we inherited it from Christianity, right? That's why we say it. So I looked into the original Greek, and as is very classic with the Bible, there's about 100 interpretations, but most of the original Greek is called ecclesia or ecclesia, and most translations either call it, either say it's those who are called out. So either those who are called out, by which it means, it means the people that are called out from the world to live in Christ. That's what ecclesia means in that sense. Or the other meaning is those who are assembled, and that's like the OG original Greek word, which is how the Greek citizenry was described. So what we can see here is it's about people, right? It's about a group of people ultimately who share some common belief or are assembled around some common ideal or goal. That's kind of what it's hinting at, right? Especially this particular definition, those who are called out. Yeah, and as you can see here, it's kind of this idea that it's the people who are called out from the world and called towards God to become the body of Christ, right? So that's what the church means in this sense, the body of believers. But then recently in the English language and also many other languages, I know in German it's Kirche, I don't know about other languages, but we got this word church, right? And actually from the original Greek, it comes from this word kyriakos, which means belonging to the Lord. Okay, so that's what church means, belonging to the Lord. So the key thing here is that in the original sense, church did not mean a building or an organization. It was belonging to the Lord, people who belong to the Lord. So that's just the seed I want to plant in your minds for now. Okay. But then if you search up on, this is from the Cambridge Dictionary, if you search it up today, the first definition you get back is that a church is a building for Christian religious activities. That's the first definition you get. So it's a building, right? So that's the current definition. So you say, you ask, your family asks you, hey, are you coming to church on Sunday? It's a place that you go to. It's a building you go to, right? And then the second definition is an official Christian religious organization. And the third one is an occasion where this organization meets a group of people. So what we see here is actually related to an organization or a building. It's institutional in that sense. So that's what the church, that's the current meaning in English. I don't know about other languages, how they would define it, but this is its most common usage. And yeah, that's kind of how we normally use it, right? Is I go to church on Sundays, or I'm a part of the church, by which we mean we're affiliated with the organization of FFWPU, right? But I want to present a new way to approach church. I want to present church as a verb. I chose a stock image here just to avoid copyright issues, but because the one that Alex chose on the Facebook event is, it belongs to some company or something. So anyways, but that's an aside, but church as a verb. So what I want to present is a way of reconnecting to the original meaning of church, where it's about relationships, basically, right? It's people who share some common goals, some common ideal, and who care about the same things. And because of that, they basically want to, yeah, that's why they gather. So in this sense, if it's about relationships, then it's something active. A verb is something you do, it's something you practice, it's something you create, it's something you initiate. It's not something that you're, let's say, necessarily, I don't want to say a part of, but it's not something that you affiliate yourself with. It's something you create. It's not an institution, but it's something you create. And that's what community is as well. So generally, that's why I prefer to use the word community, because most people understand that as something you create through relationships. But yeah, essentially, that's how I want to present church and plant that seed in your mind that maybe church is something we create. So just that, you know, let's say after today, or like, yeah, maybe you can think about this, you know, just to catch yourself when you say, I go to church on Sundays, but instead to say, to think of it like this, that church is something I create. It's the way I treat people. It's the way I take an interest in my friends' lives, right? It's a way that I try to practice good ideals to become a more loving person, all those things. So it's something you create and it's relational, right? That's what it is, not necessarily an institution. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up my talk, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, but that's just something I wanted to present as kind of a precursor to how we understand the church. And then to introduce the discussion, so I guess if a church is something we create and it's more relational, then what kind of a community do you want to build? What does that look like for you? What do you really want to see? Because that actually is up to you. Because that's my point here. It's a verb, it's something you create. So um, yeah, that pretty much wraps up my talk. But I think the discussion questions, you know, through these we can kind of flesh all this out a lot more. Yeah, and I think we'll be able to delve into a lot deeper. So I'm going to wrap it up there. But Alex, should I read the questions out? All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Cool. So the first question: how would you describe the church? So that's the first one. The second one is share one positive experience you've had within the community. The third point, share one negative experience you've had in the community. Next one, what does the ideal community look like for you? And what is one practical step you can take to help the community resemble your ideal a bit more? And I guess maybe I should have said the ideal, I guess because the community is based on True Parents' words. But anyways, like what kind of community do you want to create? That's what I'm trying to say here. Like what's one thing you can do to create the community you want to see? Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
Lovely. Thank you. It's
Oops.
definitely nice finding the original definition and how it's been completely changed from something where, yeah, people just have faith in something to belonging to God, people of God, to yeah, something completely different organization. So yeah, I created some breakout groups. We're going to talk for 45 minutes, ideas, and then get back together and share the best of like ideas, points from our people or yourself that really touched you. So if you don't mind taking some mental notes as people share, if you really like a point. Yeah. So hope you have a nice discussion, guys. See you on the other side. Hey yo, Kamsa, did you want to share your
Hello again.
Kamsa, did you want to share your happiest moment? I didn't get to hear it. I apologize for Oh, sorry, I'm still recording. My group. Sorry, it was actually a lot less time. We didn't get through the questions 3 and 4, unfortunately, with our group, because we were sharing quite a lot about previous experiences. I'm not sure about you guys if you had enough time, but yeah, I hope we can come here and share our points of views, and maybe we can together go through questions 3 and 4 of how does the ideal community look like to you, and what are the practical steps you can take to help the community resemble your ideal a little bit more. If you feel like you have some valuable opinion, or everyone has a valuable opinion, so feel free to take the floor. Yeah, what do you guys want to start with? Do you want to start with, I guess, positive experiences, something great in your group?
Yeah, I can go on that question if we're discussing now. So I think the common thread that came to our group was the sense of belonging, and that it's your people in a way, like it's a home you can return to. Yeah, and even if you meet, as we are doing right now, that there's people here, like there's people in my group I didn't know before today, and they're from other countries, but there's a sense that we share something. So yeah, mostly that sense of belonging.
Yeah, definitely. It's important to feel like you belong somewhere. Otherwise, yeah, what's the kind of point? Yeah, we were also sharing about lots of experiences that created these environments where people felt like they belonged. So there's not only the community, but there's specific events like workshops where people took some leadership roles, or like had teams where they got to create and show the art and artistic side and have inside jokes and just be silly and do performances that you'll never get to do in anywhere else in the world, apart from a workshop environment. And yeah, some were talking about hanging out with people within the community and doing sports with them. That's like their favorite experiences. And yeah, having also spiritual like enlightenments or revelations kind of rising at some moment, that everyone around them was somewhat trying their best to be good people and make everyone feel special and love everyone around them and be there for them. So that was also a nice revelation for that person to have. It was during a game called Touch Someone Who, where everyone shows their appreciation to people, and yeah, definitely brought them some more confidence. Does anyone else want to share some great?
Yeah, I think in my group, I may have just said it in passing, but I don't think I actually fully elaborated on it. Also kind of bouncing on what Beni said, that one of the things I appreciate anyway about our community is how much of us, how much moral values that it has been instilled in me, because I always go about thinking, where would I have been had I not been taught all these things growing up? Would I, I just, I wonder what kind of person I would have been, because definitely I wouldn't be who I am. So I wonder if, I would have been where I am in my current life, focused and driven, or if I could have, gone off the rails and been on the streets. You never know. So yeah, that's one thing that I really appreciate, the backbone, and yeah, a sense of purpose as well. Yeah.
Amen. Yes, purpose. The more values instilled with yourself and everyone around you, you gain from spending time with them. And yeah, I definitely feel like purpose is also a really important one within this community. I think sometimes even sharing at the end of these sessions, some people were saying that they're struggling with purpose and or meaning or values. So yeah, hearing their experiences and kind of hearing other people's experiences kind of also brought them purpose. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, I guess we can also share about any of the other questions we found valuable to us. If anyone wants to share any revelations or
Yeah, I don't know if it was about the questions. I feel like we didn't really stick to the questions. We kind of just went around and talked about stuff. But I think someone brought something that was quite interesting. Like a question, do we think that our community is very inclusive, or is it like a bubble kind of thing when it comes to culture? And I think that's quite, yeah, we went into it, and I think it's quite an interesting idea, right? Because we kind of we want to be very inclusive, but at the same time, sometimes our communities can be quite judging towards like even like second gen that kind of don't abide by the rules, or like people that are in the church and then they kind of leave. Also, like, what does leaving the church mean? That's a question, right? But I think that was a good, interesting point. And then someone is expressing how it is helpful to think about the church like you don't have to accept everything, or like every tradition, every like thing that is taught, but then you kind of can use it to your advantage, or like you can manipulate in the sense of like you can mold your experience, or like what you take from the church to your own kind of needs somehow. And then this just reminded me of a quote that someone said in a workshop once, that was the church, I'm not in the church is in me. And is this whole idea about separating the institution from the actual church when it comes to like my connection to God, my connection to the values, my connection to the principle. So like taking the whole politics aside, like pushing it aside, because it's true, is there, and like it impacts things, but at the same time it doesn't have to have a direct correlation to your own personal faith kind of thing. Yeah, those were quite interesting points that I think we touched on. I don't remember if there were any other ones, but yeah, some good discussions.
Thank you for sharing. I can always trust you for a good discussion in a group. It's wonderful how deep, what depth you go into the philosophy of each question and trying to understand the true meaning of them. And thank you for sharing how you feel. Like, are we, how inclusive we are to people we disagree with. I guess that's kind of what you went over as a community. Yeah, I guess lots of people have their own opinions of this, and I guess it very varies amongst each individual person how loving they are of everyone, if they're living up to the values of love, even the person you hate the most. And I guess other people can share.
Just something that came up in our group on that point is this kind of false piety that you see a lot in our community. I think as was mentioned, where if somebody is living a lifestyle that you don't agree with or you don't believe follows a standard, then you try to suss them out and figure out, are they good or bad, are they, that kind of thing, trying to put them in a box. And yeah, you definitely see that, I think. And that, yeah, that if you, that kind of false piety, that's all there is to life. Like, I mean, it's important to practice standard, very, very important to have values and ideals, but it's also important to be a person with a generous spirit and a generous heart, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's like people go through so many experiences. It's trying to judge them when you haven't been them through them yourself, or while they're still learning from those experiences, is not the most loving thing to do. And yeah, even you judging them can bring you in even more negative experiences, or it may bring the sense of you not trying to understand them, or you don't truly love them as well if you're not trying to understand them. So yeah, I definitely agree with this kind of sense of not fully trying to understand it. You're trying to see if someone's a good person or a bad person, or if you agree with them or not, or trying to prove them wrong, or just say why they judge them so subconsciously why they're wrong. Uh, yeah, there's also so not taking people. We also share some things like not people taking people seriously and valuing their viewpoint, or also having some kind of expectations from them. Um, uh, like kind of brings them down, because especially when people are trying to be honest with you or trying their best, and then you have the same kind of expectation, or like, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, I expect you to be doing this, and not truly understanding what they're going through. Yeah Thank you for sharing. Can you again, Benny? Does the other people want to share points from the that came to light?
Yeah, I don't mind saying some of the things I suppose that was said in our group. One thing that came up under like negatives, is this kind of okay. This word wasn't specifically used, but it's the word that kind of came to mind. This kind of no, not supremacy. This kind of thought anyway we have in our church where um we can sometimes have the belief that we are kind of better than other groups, other people kind of in the secular world, to the tune of, oh, we don't exclude people that way. And I think it was alluded to maybe in what else was said. Superiority, yeah, that's one word to use. uh, for sure. um but I think also in this kind of not only how inclusive we are, but also kind of yeah, the way we kind of judge people and the kind of social kind of connotations that come with said judgment. Like we've probably all heard of people disagreeing with someone on something and being called negative, or like, oh, Satan has invaded that person, and then there's this whole thing about it, and okay. sorry sorry um but like, all jokes aside, like I feel like it is kind of something in our communities that isn't always addressed, and I mean, depending on the community. um but yeah, I think it's something that we need to kind of take a look at and kind of keep tabs on, because especially I think as our community kind of goes, like as we go from taking example from elders to becoming the example for the next generations, for instance, I think it's important that we kind of get this clear in our mind, like where do we stand on our own view of our community, and can we be objective enough to see when there are negative things that need to be changed.
Definitely, yeah. I'd like to kind of argue with that. At least like from at least the second gens I talk with, quite often they don't necessarily. I don't know. We don't feel like we're somewhat superior. We just feel like we have maybe better values, maybe, or like what we say. We don't necessarily say, "Oh, I'm above these people." It's just like, "Oh, I maybe value something." From my perception, of how families work, or something as such, is utmost important to me. Hence, I value other people who trying to achieve this, right? It's not like someone has a wonderful family and we say, "Oh, you suck because you're not unificationist." Yeah, uh, we're not anywhere like that. All I'd say, we just have certain values that we try and achieve, and yeah. But I get what you mean. You may feel like it's a common thing that people may express in some way, like there's these other people, right? not part of this group. And I guess one way people, I feel like the difference there is not kind of too much judgmental. It's like, it's more that we have different experiences with them, so sharing what we value with them is quite hard to do, I guess, because we say, oh, I value these great things, as if they don't value it. We kind of, I guess, yeah, sorry, I don't know where I'm going with this, but it kind of, they don't understand what we've been through kind of growing up and being in these communities as well. So trying to share too much with them kind of your life growing up in these communities is sometimes a little bit harder. Our experiences of being within these communities is a little bit harder. But yeah, I don't know, you guys, sorry. That is a great point to go forward, being aware of that. Yeah, they're people just like us.
If
Yeah,
I can, oh no, go on.
No, I can really like 100% agree with that, that we do have the sense of superiority. And especially when I was growing up as a kid, you know, I always felt like, I'm a second gen and everyone else is not, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like, you know, it is important to like know your value, but at the same time, you can't belittle everyone else, because at the end of the day, everyone is God's children and God wants everyone back, because you can't stand in front of God and say, hey, God, you know, I'm here. God will ask you, but where is everybody else? Like, where are my other children? You know, you're all my children. Of course, we, you know, we stand on a foundation, you know, of our parents, and actually, that just means it's more responsibility for us. Sometimes I feel like, could I have not been that person who needed to be saved, you know? Because it's actually it's a lot for us. And so, you know, with your privilege responsibility comes with that. So it's definitely a balance that I had to, you know, achieve. And yeah, and I came to also realize that our values are basically what any other religious group teaches. It's not like, I mean, I can go and preach and people will say, but I already know that, you know. It's just how we enforce it, really, I think. And also, I think it's that judgmental culture as well on how we try to manage that. So, yeah, I think that's what also distinguishes us a little bit, I think. Yeah, that's my piece.
Can I was also like thinking, like, I do agree with it as well quite a lot. I think we do have this kind of sense of like, I am better, or like, even when it comes to like this whole interreligious thing that is going on, like trying to like, you know, work with other religions, I feel like there's always this kind of thing behind it where it's like, I am organizing this, or like, I am better and I'm doing this and this, you know. I feel like it's not as pure-hearted somehow sometimes. There's always kind of this intention of like, yeah, we are cool, we are the better religion, we have like true parents and stuff, like we are on the right track somehow, you know. But I think at the same time, when like comes to like judging, or like when it comes to our communities judging people, I think that's not right. Like they should be more inclusion and people shouldn't feel excluded. But I think there's also this kind of thing that is like kind of in conflict with it, which is like trying to hold a certain standard. So when you're like trying to teach someone something, and when it's like super strict, as like, for example, purity, right? It's like such a big thing for us as kids. I feel like if I was trying to be thought that, while the outside society isn't trying to do the same thing, and then seeing people, if I would have seen people in the church older than me not being an example, or like not following that same path that I'm being told that is the actual right path, I think it would have been hard. I mean, I don't know, personally for me, I guess it just depends, but I think it can be hard for a lot of people, right? So then I think there's this kind of thing where it's like I'm trying to set a certain standard, which is quite high sometimes, you could say, for example, and then how can I also be loving and including people that are not following that standard, right? I don't know, but I think it's a very interesting thing to think about. And I don't know what's the answer, because I feel like there's kind of a conflict between these two. Yeah, that's my point.
I think.
Sorry.
Oh,
Wait.
no, please.
Go ahead.
Alexander
wait.
has handed
Oh, got
up,
4 of
sorry.
us.
Oh, yeah, actually, that's a good idea with the hands. So I would say it's a good idea, like to end the discussion for now. And
Oh, usually we end at 15:15. We end the group discussions. So we still have
But
15 minutes, because I would like to still go over kind of what the ideal community kind of we want to build, what things we can do going forward. If that's okay with you
never mind
guys.
then.
Yeah, so this was like a great point to understand that we have to love everybody. Essentially, try not to judge them, and to not belittle them as well for maybe loving, maybe doing something different than the standards we have ourselves. Yeah, but yeah, I would love to hear. Sorry, maybe some people wanted to express something, but I'd also like to hear like the practical steps that people have thought of going forward, so we can all kind of learn and grow in some way, going forward with our own communities.
Yeah, on that topic, I think personally, I think it starts with a kind of a real honesty in communities, I guess. And I think that is like the absolute foundation that we need to have, or at least one of the kind of things we need for a solid foundation in any community. Because I feel like we can all believe the same thing, for instance, but if we're not honest with each other about other matters, I think it's kind of counterproductive to anything else we kind of build upon with that. So practically, I think not shying away from having honest discussions in our communities, I think, is just one thing that is an absolute must in having good communities and a good culture.
Well, it's a great place for tough discussions. So you came to the right
Oh.
place, but it's also good, I guess, to have this. Sorry, outside. Yeah, sorry, someone was about to talk.
Oh yeah, thanks, Alex. Also, thanks, Rory. Yeah, what I was thinking, also connected to the supremacy thing, because we like to say, oh, we are great, or we are better, but for me personally, for example, on STF or like even on workshops, when you see like people, everyone is like, oh, we're loving each other, we're like good brothers, and we're doing things for each other. But then at the end, there are always those few people who don't say much, but they still clean up everything. They always help and be this kind of person that actually helps, and be this kind of person that actually does things to like help or try to include people. They don't pretend to include people, right? And I think that's a thing that I personally, when I see those people, I think I respect those people more than people who just pretend to be nice. Those people who do actions. And that's what I would say is like, instead of just saying we're great, just do the things. Just try to include people, try to talk to people, don't be fake. Just like actions say more than words, I guess. So that's something that's really, people also complain. It's like, oh, we say nice things, but we are still judging, or we're still, right? Yeah.
Amen. Yeah, actions definitely speak louder than words. You're completely right. And you say you want to live for the sake of others, and then you just like make someone else clean up your mess like after a workshop, right? It's just like, oh, is that do you really learn anything from that workshop, you know? Or do you just be, yeah, and then kind of enjoy it yourself, kind of. But yeah, I like that point. And I think we should all kind of work towards this. Yeah, there's also experiences where people have complained about a lot about the church, yet they don't want to do anything to change it or take the responsibility to make the difference in the community, I guess. When they perfectly, the role is there for them to take if they really care about it and want to make the change, yeah, themselves. Any other points someone to share?
I feel like one thing that's very interesting that Bea actually mentioned about like purity and things like that. I think, and also I think Kaya mentioned it, that like I feel like so many communities or so many religions are actually so similar. Like it's a very common thing to have purity in a religion actually. And I think in some way it's interesting that religions like separate from each other in that fact. And I thought about like, because I think what I think our community wants to do more and more nowadays is substantiate that this like holy community feeling of having all the religions there, like having everybody welcome. And I thought I know how much like BCs they connect so much through like workshops and things like that. And I was like, why don't we have, for example, workshops where all religions are, or all different lifestyles or things like that are connected, or they could join a workshop just simply based on like common principles, because I think a lot of them are very similar. But YSP is different, I would say. I don't know, that's just personally my opinion, but I thought it could be a very interesting thing to see how or like sort of that coming together, and you also like you could discuss so many different things and you just become more an open-minded person that way too, I think. Yeah,
Definitely.
but practically how to do it is maybe a bit more difficult. I don't know.
I think someone in the UK is planning on starting that 2021. Peter Kong, next year he wants to do a multi-faith workshop in London. He's going to send me a trailer of it next week, of his advert for it. Yeah, it's awesome. It's a really good point. I do agree with you. Like, and also we would get along with them, I believe, because we have so many common values and like achievements to kind of, I guess they all try their best as well to love other people. And it's definitely a place for them to kind of connect and understand their viewpoints as well, not being in a kind of bubble of, I guess, if people are feeling superior, and that it's good to kind of be opening this bubble up and understanding that other people out there just as lovely as you are their own way, and they might even have something greater than you believe. You know, they might have an answer to what your questions that unification movement doesn't have. And yeah, that's a great point. Thank you. I guess maybe we can go around like other communities and like experience their Sunday services or whatever services they have, and see how they are, and try to invite them along, or see if we like theirs as well and spend more time with them.
Yes. Sorry, I just want to say quickly, I haven't actually had opportunities to go around to any other faith organization to experience their worship day, and I feel like we have the right to. No one said we can't. And I mean, it's not like in our faith we discredit everything else. Actually, no one taught us that. Well, me. I was trying to speak for myself. And so I haven't given myself that opportunity to go and experience what other worship is like. because at the end of the day, we're attending the same God. I mean, we call God different names, but same God, you know? So, and you actually, I've heard from some of the other second gens who have gone to like Christian churches and mosques and everything, that there's so much more life there. And it's like they always come back saying that actually we can also learn a thing or two from them. It's not always about them having to learn from us all the time because we're right and they're not all the way right. So I feel like that's one project or one thing that I want to work on myself, just to go and have a look, but also have that attitude that I'm not here to be converted, which is what they would have had they come to us, you know. So anyway, I think it's just good to have that kind of experience. So yeah, want to get onto that.
As someone who's gone and done that, it is very much worth it. Like personally, I kind of grew up Catholic in a sense. Obviously, I was taught divine principle and stuff at home, but I wasn't in a community. I was actually in a kind of a, I was out in the countryside in a kind of a Catholic community. You know, I'd sing in the choir, go to church on Sundays, like communion, the full 9 yards, right? But yeah, no, Catholics, Protestants, Jewish, Muslims, Hare Krishnas, you name it. Very good to experience. They all have different kind of aspects. Yeah, it's worth it. From what I've experienced, I haven't visited them all, but
Thanks, I'll do that then.
Yeah, yeah, it's also, I think, really, really awesome, like, way to get friends outside the movement, because sometimes I talk to people and all their friends are inside the movement, but I guess there's so many people that share common values as you do, and are wonderful people out there, and it might be harder to find some of them in like different environments, but if that maybe believe in the same values as you do, if that's something that's important to you. So yeah, like a Muslim community is just so wonderful as well. I just go there and dabble with them. Yeah, so many good points here. Thank you for sharing
I feel
them.
like, oh, I'm sorry. Can I say no now?
Please.
Yeah, I feel like, those, why people don't do it more. I mean, going to different churches, to Muslims, to Buddhists, is because, we're sort of too focused on the formalities, like the way we worship, what we say, who we bow to, who, some sort of not the values, not we actually believe in. Yeah, if we would, break sort of our religions to what's the point? What do we want to build? What kind of community we want to build? Will it all arrive at around the same point, I guess? Yeah, so I think we should sort of stop. And well, I talked about it before, that the way people like witness people into our churches by telling people about true parents, and I think it's not right, because you give those formalities like from the very at the very beginning. You sort of show that, well, now these are your ideals, instead of telling like the values which many people could possibly relate to. Yeah, well, because for example, if you just went out and started to witness, to like tell Christians about what we believe in, like the idea of a strong, like this culture of strong family, this culture of purity and so on, a lot more Christians would be sort of attracted to our church, and they would be interested to visit and like to listen to to what is taught in our churches. Yeah, but because we start witnessing to them by telling them about true parents for second Messiah, and for them the only Messiah is Jesus. Like it sort of gives birth to some rejection, because it's not right. It just contradicts what they have been believing in for their whole life.
Yeah, thank you. Or yeah, maybe start to
Sorry, I just wanted to say, I never actually like witness, but I don't think people start and like say about true parents right at the beginning. I think you only tell them about true parents once you lure them in for like a week or two. Like, I'm kidding, not really lure, but I mean you get weird. Yeah, like look, chocolate. No, I'm kidding. Okay, but yeah, I think you just don't tell them at the beginning, because I think also like people, when they do witnessing, is not the first purpose is just to kind of see if the person agrees with the values and principles and stuff, and then only after a while, when they're like actually agree to all of this, they tell them about true parents. I think it's like that, at least from like what I've heard around Europe and stuff. Please correct me if I'm wrong, STF people.
You still brought up a good point, like kind of sharing the values, the importance of, yeah, when you talk about the church, you just say, oh, I believe in these values, like in the importance of family, I guess. So that's what his point was, rather than talk about it as an institution to other people. Yeah, so we had some great points. Does Alexander want to add to them right now? Or
yeah, just to answer Bear's question, or like to Bear, in my experience, we tell them about true parents like pretty much immediately, but we don't say that's the Messiah. We say those are our founders or our leaders. In Austria, for example, we often have a picture of the president in the school. It's kind of like that, you just have a picture of your leader around. But yeah.
Well, it depends. Like, for example, in Romania, we we just did workshops usually, and then people get comfortable with our group and people are interested in what we're doing, and then we have this certain standard of values in our workshops, and then we slowly get into DP lectures, and then you get in closer to true parents. But anyways, every country is doing differently. There's no right answer.
Yeah, I guess it depends of the culture in the country and the church and stuff. Yeah. Thank you for the answers.
I think that is kind of somewhat a right to answer that. Like, sorry to disagree. Like Peter was sharing that, like their movement for maybe 20 years ago around universities, and in that 20 years they haven't got anyone to kind of listen further or like attend or join. So I guess it can be kind of a bit worse off methods. But yeah, I definitely agree that the great ways to kind of understand people, express yourself, live up to them. And there's some great points so far. Well, one about honesty, not shying away from tough discussions, and trying to get to the uttermost truth and understand each other. And then another great point from Hannes, which was to kind of be the person to include other people and always help and serve as much as you can. That's definitely a practical step to help your community. And then there's one about understanding other faiths, learn from other faiths, and kind of have multi-faith workshops and experiences with other people. So your community is more than just a bubble, and it's more just kind of the people who share your values around you, which is most faiths. And yeah, does anyone want to share any other point before we go to a closing prayer and more discussions or games? I think Alex had an announcement actually.
Yeah, not really an announcement, just we will go into discussions and games again.